Okay, so here's an updated video on how to install stock Klipper on the V400. If you follow the previous video or previous instructions, it will fail. And if you try to update your Klipper on the speeder pad and you're on an older version of stock Klipper, it will also fail. And when it fails, you will get stuck on the boot screen, or it will give you some errors as seen here. And the main reason is that because KlipperScreen has Klipper and KlipperScreen has updated some of their components, and the speeder pad has some compatibility issues. So now it has been fixed. But if you try to update, because some of the components that is required is not present on the system, so you can't update directly from an older version. You have to reinstall the whole firmware. If you're coming from a previous version of the stock Klipper, you don't have to do a restore OS image because you already have SSH access. But if you're doing like a new install from the FLSun version of Klipper, you probably don't have SSH access, in which case you will have to restore your OS to a version with SSH access. Okay, if you already have SSH access, you can skip this section. To restore, you will basically download the restore image, which is here, and you would just download this file. This is an image for a speeder pad. And then you will also download the Pi imager here. You just scroll down and just download for Windows, macOS, Ubuntu, whatever you're using, install it. And once you have that installed, you would run the Pi imager. And the Pi imager looks like this. You don't have to choose a Pi device because we're not using a Pi device, so we'll skip that. We would choose our operating system, scroll down to the very bottom, select use custom, select the 1.2 image that you downloaded from the Google Drive here. You choose that, and then for storage, you will need a micro SD card that is at least 32 gigs, okay, because your image is 32 gigs. Okay, so here it has custom settings, press no, and then it will remind you that it will erase everything off your SD card, yes. Okay, so if you try to install it on an SD card or micro SD card that's less than 32 gigs, what will happen is the Pi imager will try to write to it, and then you'll wait for quite a while, and then at the very end it will fail. Just make sure that you have at least 32 gigs on your micro SD card. Okay, so we're just going to wait for that to write. Okay, so once it has been written, it will tell you that you can remove your SD card from the reader. And next thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to your speeder pad. Okay, so after you've install the 1.2 image onto your micro SD card, you're going to turn off your speeder pad and then unplug all the USBs that you have plugged into it. Put in the micro SD card on the top here, plug in the power, and when it boots up, you'll see this green bar, and you'll just wait for it to finish installing. Okay, so here when you see that this green bar is full, you're done, and so you can just unplug. And once you've unplugged, you can then push on micro SD cards and it'll pop out. And then you'll connect the power back. And at this time, you can also plug in the USB to the printer. Okay, when it's booted up, you're going to go into configuration, networks, and then you're going to find your Wi-Fi and connect to it. Okay, so here it says connected, and then close that. And then if you refresh, at the very top, it should show up your IP address. Okay, if it doesn't show up here, what you can do is you can go into your router and check what IP you have. And so now I'm going to do an SS connection to the speeder pad. So you can open command prompt by searching CMD, and that will open command prompt. In command prompt, you can go SSH space pi at whatever your IP address is. So for my speeder pad, it would be 192.168.1.11. Now on your router, it might give it a different IP. So check your router or check your speeder pad wherever you can find your IP. Press enter, it's going to ask for a password, and then you would type in FLSun. Okay, so that will give you SSH access. So I've already done that, so I'm not going to change the password. So next thing I'm going to do is change the time zone. Okay, so to make sure that the time on the speeder pad is reported correctly, I'm going to check what time zone it is. And so here it says it's set to New York, which is not correct for me. So I'm going to run the next command, which is to change the time zone. And so password is FLSun. Okay. And so here, just choose your continent. So I'm in Asia and Taipei. Okay, after you've done this, you want to redo the time data CTL. Okay, you can just press up arrow to repeat the previous commands. And so if it's not this one, you can press up arrow again to find the one that you used previously. If you went over, you can press the down arrow to go back. Okay. So I'm going to check here, so make sure that's set. Okay, so once I make sure that's set, I can then go to the next step, which is change my Wi-Fi location. So I'm going to check what it's set to right now. So on GitHub, if you click this, that will copy whatever code is here, and on a command prompt, you can right-click to paste. So if I click here, that will be copy. And here I can right click and double paste. Okay, so right now it says unset, so I will probably want to change that. Okay, so I want to know what my country code is. If you're not sure what your country code is, you can run this next command, and that will give you a list of all the country codes that your speeder pad knows. So you'll basically look at this center column here, look for your continent, and then your city. Okay, so here Asia, Taipei, TW. So then you're going to run this next code, which sets the country, and you can then change out FR for whatever country code you have. And once you change that, you want to do the IWREG get again, just to make sure that you've set it. So once you make sure that it's now set, you want to actually write that into your configuration so that it gets saved. And there's a whole bunch of steps to it. And so here, the next step, you need to change out this FR after ampersand for your country code. Then the next one, you don't have to change anything, you just copy and paste. Then after that, you will have another command where you need to change a country code just after set. So after this set, just before the exit, change it to your country code, press enter. Then last, you will do a sudo reboot to reboot your speeder pad. So now your speeder pad will reboot, and okay, so now that the speeder pad is rebooted, the next thing that we were going to do is update the dependencies. Now this is where a lot of the changes has happened, because the newer version of Klipper and KlipperScreen requires some components that the v1.2 did not have, or the previous versions of stock Klipper did not have. So we're going to have to download the script first, and so this script will be pretty fast. Oh, sorry, I need to go back to SSH and then run that command. Okay, so once that's downloaded, you'll run the script that you just downloaded. It'll ask for your password, FLSun, and then this will take a while. It'll just run through the process of downloading the stuff that you need. So we'll wait for that. Okay, and one thing to make sure is that you want to make sure you have stable and fast internet connection. If it's too slow or it's not stable, then you're going to have a lot of issues with packagings not downloading, timing out, and you may have to rerun like these command multiple times just because you timed out and you're not downloading the files. Okay, so make sure you have a fast and stable internet connection when you run these commands. Okay, so once that script has finished, the speeder pad will reboot. Now, before you run this next step, what you want to do is you want to go onto your speeder pad. Okay, and on your speeder pad, you want to enable the MCU temp stuff. You want to see those sensors. So you enable those by going into configuration, settings, and then here hide sensor temp. By default it will be turned on. You want to turn that off. Okay, so once you turn that off, you'll need to reboot your speeder pad, and then when you boot up again on your screen, you'll see the V7 MCU temperature. Okay, this is important. Okay, and the reason that temperature is important is because the next command we're going to run is going to cause the speeder pad to disconnect from the Wi-Fi. And when you disconnect from Wi-Fi, if you want to wait for this network error, like you want to wait for the command prompt to time out with the aborted connection, it takes a long time. Okay, so what we're going to do instead is now, okay, we're going to SSH into the speeder pad, and then we're going to run this command. Now, when we run this command, you can look at the speeder pad and you can look at the temperature, and you'll see that the temperature will go up and down as the processor is doing work. Okay, so you'll know what the processor is doing, or if the processor is doing anything, you'll see that the temperature will fluctuate. And so once this you get stuck on this processing trigger for system D, and then instead of waiting for this error to happen before you unplug, what you will do is once you get stuck here, you will just look at your temperature chart, and once the temperature has plateaued and it's not spiking, that means your processor is not doing anything. In that case, you can then unplug instead of waiting a good 10, 15, 20 minutes for this error to pop up. Okay, so here I see that this just hanging here. I'm looking at my speeder pad, so the temperature has slightly plateaued. So now I'm going to unplug the speeder pad and then plug it back in. So now it's rebooting, or it's booting up, not rebooting. Once it's booted up, we'll go into configurations, network, and then we will have to reconnect to our Wi-Fi. Okay, so once it's connected, I can just close and go back onto my computer. Okay, now back on the computer, this command terminal is now useless because it's still waiting for response, which is not going to happen. So we're just going to close that. We're going to open a new command prompt. And again, we're going to SSH into our printer. Password is FLSun. Okay. And then we're going to run these commands. Okay. So what these commands are is configuring the network manager and turning off some incompatible features. So here we're going to turn off the policy toolkit, and we're going to do Control X, Y, enter. Okay, Control X is exit, Y is save. It asks you where to save. We don't need to change anything, just press enter. Okay, so once that's safe, we're going to do a reboot. Okay, so now that the speeder pad has rebooted, I've connected back to my Wi-Fi, we're going to SSH back into the printer. That's what FLSun, and run these commands. So these commands, what I believe it's doing is it's changing over from the old method of network managing over to network manager. Something's wrong. There we go. Then what we're going to do is we have to, I'm not sure why we have to do this, but I think this is like we have to write in a backup into the configuration so that if it sees a certain Wi-Fi, it will connect to it. Okay, so run this command and you'll see all your Wi-Fi that your speeder pack can see, and it's color coded. So I think that's like purple or blue, probably not a good Wi-Fi to use. Okay, so find your Wi-Fi and then do the next command where you will type in your password and your SSID, so your access point name. Okay, and that will set network manager to connect to the Wi-Fi that you set. And then we're going just to check to make sure that that's what it's connected to. Yes. Okay, then next we have to run the script. We have to download a script. Okay, and now we have to download the script, and that script is downloaded. After that's downloaded, we're going to run that script. And so I believe this script is just updating the files, and this will take a while, so we're just going to wait for that. Okay, so now that update is done, we're going to delete the FLSun build or any previous build that we have. So we're going to run Kuha. But before we run Kuha, we're going to run a command called ls. So that lists your files. And so here what you should see is something like this if you're coming from the FLSun build. Now, if you're coming from like a previous stock Klipper build, you might see something like printer underscore one underscore data or printer underscore data. Okay, if you see those folders, you should delete those folders first. So to delete those folders, what you can do is you go sudo rm-f- -r-f or -f-r, doesn't really matter, and then whatever that folder is called. So for example, printer data, okay, or if it's like printer underscore one data, printer underscore two data. Okay, if you see those folders being listed here, delete those folders first. Okay, in my case, because I'm coming from a FLSun version, I won't have these folders, but if you're coming from like a previous stock Klipper, you might have those folders. Okay, so after that, then I can run Kuha. And so here you'll see that you have things installed and you want to delete those. Now here it says dubious owner or whatever. If you care about this, okay, you think that maybe it's not safe, you have a dirty version of Kuha, okay, we can exit out of this. And because it says this one's dubious or whatever, let's just uninstall this version of Kuha and then clone the official version of Kuha, or just so that we know it's safe. Okay, so we're going to do ls to make sure that we have this folder here, this Kuha folder, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do sudo rm-r-f and then just Kuha. Okay, so that will delete Kuha off of your printer, and then now we have to download. Okay, and here we're just going to download Kuha from GitHub. So we're going to do get code, copy URL, or you can copy this URL too, doesn't really matter which one you copy. Okay, then what we're going to do on the SSH is just type git clone depth 2 hyphens depth 1 and then paste. Okay, if you don't mind this warning here, you don't have to do this step, but I'm just showing you that if you care about this, you can get like a clean version by just doing a clone from the official repo. Okay, so once you have that clone, you can then run Kuha again, and this time it won't give you any warnings. Right, so this time won't give you any warnings. So if that warning bugs you, that's how you solve it. Okay, so here we're going to go into option 3, which is to remove everything that we have installed. Okay, now if you're coming from the FLSun version of Klipper, what you want to install first is MPEG Streamer. But if you're coming from a previous version of Klipper, stock Klipper, what you'll probably have installed is Crow's Nest. So you'll install Crow's Nest instead of MPEG Streamer. Okay, so here, if you're on stock Klipper, type 9. If you are on FLSun version of Klipper, type 10. And that will uninstall whatever webcam daemon you have. And then the next thing you want to install is the KlipperScreen. Then uninstall Mainsail, then Moonraker. And lastly, you will uninstall Klipper after Moonraker is done. Okay, so the remove process is pretty fast because it's just deleting files from the speeder pad. Okay, so once all of that is done, you will type B to go back a level, to go back to the main menu of Kuha. But you don't have to exit out of Kuha because the next step that you're going to do is to install stuff using Kuha. So you don't have to exit out of it and then enter back in. Okay, so now we can skip this step because we didn't exit out of it, and then we're just going to run 1 to install stuff, and we're going to basically install everything we just deleted. So 1 and Python 3 is recommended. Instances 1, I'm just going to install 1 instance. Okay, and that will take some time because it will download stuff from the internet. Now again, if your internet is not stable or if your speed is not fast, you can check by seeing what the number is in kilobytes per second. If it's like single digits or double digits, your internet is probably a bit slow. You might get some errors, in which case reposition your printer so that's closer to your AP, or make sure you use internet at a time where it's less congested. So for example, this will be like an internet error where it's not downloading. So if that happens, it's not a big deal. All I have to do is just redo the command again. Okay, so yeah, if you keep encountering that issue, maybe like just wait for a few minutes. Maybe there's some congestion on GitHub, or maybe some congestion on your internet, whatever it is. Wait a few minutes. So as you can see now, my speed is quite fast, so I shouldn't get that error. So just wait for that to finish, then we will do the next step. Okay, so once you have Klipper installed, you will then install Mainsail, not Mainsail, Moonraker by typing 2. Ask if you're sure, just press enter, and wait for that to finish. Okay, now that Moonraker is done, we're going to do Mainsail 3. Enter. It's going to download some stuff. Now it asks if you want to install macros. We're not going to download macros, just because we're going to load those manually because we're on a Delta printer. And then once that's done, we're going to quit out of Kuha, and we want to install KlipperScreen. Okay, so just make sure that everything is installed. Klipper, Moonraker, Mainsail. Okay. Now we're going to quit out of that. Okay, enter, and that will clone the script. Once that's cloned, we will run the script. Okay, now here it's going to ask you some options. If you want to do standalone mode, yes, which is default because Y is in capital, so we're just going to press enter. And then X server or Wayland, we want X server, which is X is capital, so that's also default, so we just press enter. Okay, so these two questions, you don't have to type anything, just press enter. And then after a while, I'll ask you if you want to do network manager, just type no, because we already installed that. Okay, so here I ask if we want to install network manager, type N for no, enter. Okay. Then the next thing we're going to do is these two commands. This command will set it so that when you plug in USB, it'll show up on your printable files. And the next one just reboots your printer. Okay, so we're going to wait for the printer to reboot. Okay, so once it's rebooted, Klipper won't be able to connect to your printer because you haven't set it up yet. But that's fine. Just go to your IP address, which is your Mainsail, and it should just bring you into Mainsail UI, and it'll give you some errors. That's fine. Ignore it for now. So we're going to go into moonraker.conf, and we're just going to copy this, paste it at the very end, and press save and restart. Okay, so now that it's installed, we will have to do the motherboard firmware. So for the firmware, you just open up the top of a printer and look at whatever board is inside, choose that one. Okay, so once you undo the 6 screws on the top plate will come off. Then you'll see that you have a main board inside over here. And on this main board, you should see somewhere. Okay, so here you'll see what version you have. So here I have a Nano V2. Okay, so I'm just going to click this Nano V2.1 clone. Okay, then it gives you all of these stuff. Okay, so you're going to need to SSH into your printer. FLSun, run these commands. Okay, and it'll bring you to this page. Okay, and this page you're going to configure your settings so that it matches this screenshot right here. So we're going to use the arrow keys to go up and down and press the enter key to enable extra low level configurations. The second one, we want the STM32, we not AVR, so we want to select that, press enter, and then select the STM32. Then the next one, F103, we don't need to change that. 10 GB disable, we don't need to change that. This is 228 kilobyte bootloader, 8 megahertz on USR3. Where's this? USR3, PB11, PB10. Baud rate is 2500. So we don't need to change anything there. Okay, so we just go through these options, match it up with this screenshot here, and once everything is matched up, you will press Q, and it will ask you if you want to save. Press yes. Then the next thing you're going to do is do make clean, and then do make. Okay. Then we want to convert that firmware into a Robin Nano 35.bin file. Okay, we have to wait for it to compile first, and then we want to convert it. Okay, the reason that we want to upgrade the V400 motherboard is because how Klipper works. Klipper is basically two computers, and one computer, the speeder pad, is sending all the commands to the main board or the motherboard inside the printer, telling it what to do. And the printer figures out, the motherboard figures out which motors to move and by how much. Right? So if these two computers are not on the same version, they might have different features, so they might not be communicating properly. So this is why you want to make sure that if you're changing firmwares, versions, you want to make sure that you also update the motherboard. If you don't want to, it is also okay for you not to update, assuming that the two versions are not too far apart. If they're too far apart, you might have some print errors, print issues, but yeah. Okay. So anyways, now that we want to get this Robin Nano bin file out of the printer. Now, SSH allows us to run commands, but it doesn't allow us to copy files. So we need to open another command prompt to copy the files out. And we're going to use SCP. So we're just going to type SCP, okay, SCP space pi at, and then your IP address, colon. And so after this colon will be where the file that you want to copy out is. So that's where it is. And then the file that I want to copy. Okay, and then another space, and then where you want to copy to on your computer. Okay, so I'm just going copying to C drive because that's easier to type. And it's going to ask for a password, FLSun, and that will copy the file out. The file's pretty small, so it's pretty fast. Okay. Okay, so now that the file has been copied out, we will need to put this file on SD card or micro SD card. Now here it says you need to be FAT32 size 4096 and small file. For the most part, I don't think these matter, but you can insert a SD card of 8 gigs. At least for me, 8 gig works because I don't think anyone has such small micro SD card in modern times. So I'm using like a 8 gig SD card, and I'm just going to format this. And so FAT32 4096, and just press start. Okay, so once that's finished, we're just going to take the bin file, the Robin Nano 35 bin that we copied from the printer, and we're just going to put that inside our micro SD card. And we're going to eject the SD card and then insert that into the printer. Okay, so here on the printer, on the top of the printer, if you take off the top, you'll see that there's a motherboard, and that is the micro SD card reader. Put in your small capacity micro SD card, put in like that, okay? And then you will turn on the printer. And when you turn on the printer, you'll see that the front of the logo will quickly flash multiple times. And when it's steady, that means it has copied the firmware onto the motherboard. In this case, you can then turn off the printer and then eject the micro SD card from the motherboard. And now you can put the top of the printer back on. Okay, so if you're not sure if the firmware copied into a motherboard properly because maybe it flashed too fast, you didn't catch it, and you weren't sure, just take the micro SD card, put it back on your computer, and check if it has gone from the lowercase Robin Nano bin 35.bin. If it has flashed onto the motherboard properly, it will get renamed into these capital letters .cur. Okay, so this would mean that it has successfully copied the file. Copy of firmware onto the motherboard. Okay, so the next thing that we will do is to configure the Mainsail so that it can communicate with that motherboard. So you'll see it's an error, and it's like in startup, and then after a while it'll turn into another error saying it can't connect. Okay, so here we're using one instance, so we're going to go into one instance configuration, and we're going to download the configuration here. Can close this one because we don't need that. Okay, and we're going to open what we downloaded, and inside here we have the configurations, the V400, and look for the one that is yours. So I'm on well, I'm on 2.1, but it's the same thing as a MKS Robin Nano 2 stock, and we're going to copy these files out. So I'm going to just go previous, and I'm just going to copy these files out. You can copy it to anywhere you want, doesn't really matter as long as you can find it. And then here, okay, there's a few things. If you don't have an ADXL or you don't plan to use ADXL to do input shaping, you can delete these two files at the very top. Okay, and if you don't plan to install the NeoPixel stuff, you can also delete this file. Okay, so these three are the bare minimum that we need. Now, before I upload these onto a printer, I'm going to get the USB from the motherboard so that once I upload these files, they can just communicate right away. Okay. So here on the SSH, I'm going to run this command. Okay, let me just connect back onto SSH. Okay, run this command. Because I'm only running one instance and only one motherboard is connected, it should only give me one result. So I'm going to take the single result, highlight it with the left key, and then copy with the right key. And then over here, I'm going to open printer.cfg in any text editor that you want. And look for the line that says serial colon, and you'll see that it has serial colon and then a bunch of X. Replace that bunch of X with whatever you just copy from the terminal, and then you can save that. Okay, so once that's saved, close this, and then I will upload these files into Mainsail. Okay, so we can skip all of that. So in Mainsail, we're going to take these files, upload them, drop it here. Then over here, we're going to press firmware restart. And if it's done properly, you should be able to connect. So now you'll see the MCU, the host, and everything is working as is. Okay, on the dashboard, everything's working. Okay, so at this point, you already have a working printer and you have stock Klipper configured and installed and configured. Now there's some additional configurations that are optional and that I'm going to do. So first thing that I'm going to do is fix the shutdown button in Mainsail. And so this requires me to SSH into it, run the script. And then it will restart Moonraker. And I also need to restart the printer. And then once that has restarted, I'll go into Mainsail, moonraker.cfg, and paste this in. Now boot it up, go into machine, moonraker.conf. At the bottom, we're just going to add that into it, press save and restart. Okay, so that will fix the shutdown button. Then the next thing that I want to add is webcam support, so that will require me to go into Kuha and install Crow's Nest. So here I'm going to SSH into it and then run Kuha. I'm going to go 1, password is FLSun. Crow's Nest is 14, not 13. Okay, 13 is for the old version. The new version is 14. And because I'm only running on one instance, it shouldn't ask anything and it should just install. And at the end of the Crow's Nest install, it'll ask you if you want to add it to Update Manager. Default is yes, just press enter. Okay, and it'll ask you if you want to reboot. And then by default it says no, type Y, yes. And it will now reboot. Okay, now this step that says add this to moonraker.conf, we don't need that because it's been dealt with when we said we want to add it to Update Manager. And we also don't need to do the rest of these. Okay, so webcam we do need to do. So into Mainsail. Okay, so in Mainsail on the very top, going to click gears for settings, scroll to the very bottom, click webcams, and here you have edit Crow's Nest conf. If you want, you can change these values. I'm not going to change anything, I'm just going to leave it on default. I'm just going to press add webcam, and here you'll see the webcam. So this is a bedcam, oops, bedcam. Okay, give it a name, press save, and that will give you a webcam. And the last thing that I want to add is exclude object support. So I'm going to go into that. and it'll bring me to this Mainsail page for the tutorial on how to configure that. Okay, so obviously there are some settings that you have to do in your slicer, so we're going to skip over that because as usual just a toggle that you toggle on, just read it on your own. And over here we're going to copy this into moonraker.conf, moonraker.conf. At the very bottom we're going to add in this, press save and restart. And then in printer.cfg we need to add this. So printer.cfg, and it doesn't really matter where you put it. For me, I'm just going to put it under include files. It's just before include macro.cfg. I'm just going to put it here. It doesn't really matter where you put it as long as you just put it into the file. Oops. As long as you just put it into a file, save and restart. Okay, so next time you print, you'll have the option here to exclude files if it fails to print. So at this point, you will start doing your calibrations on your printers. If you want to do an auto tune, you can do a TMC auto tune, but my experience is that sometimes it creates issues, so I'm not going to do it here. If you have a NeoPixel or if you have other things to install, you might want to do other stuff. Okay, if you want to do time lapse, you might want to add time lapse support. So here I'm finished, and basically at this point you would just go calibrate your printer, and after you calibrate, you can print. The last thing that I want to show you how to do is this STL files and themes. I'm going to close this SSH session. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so here inside our Mainsail, if you want to change this icon or you want to add some background here, you can download a theme pack. So for example here, let's say I download the V400 theme pack. I'm going to extract these. There's 3 images. Okay, then I can take these images, I can go into my machine configurations. On the config wheel, make sure that I can see hidden files. Then I will create a new folder or a directory and name it dot or period theme. Okay, press enter, and that creates a folder called dot theme. Okay, and inside this folder, I'm going to upload that 3 files I downloaded. And once I uploaded that, you'll see that now there's like a logo on the left top. There's a background of the printer on the sidebar, and now the background has some patterns to it. You can modify these 3 files to your liking. Okay, so that's basically the new steps to installing Klipper on the V400.